Part 10 of this video series ended with the Barkers and Gevedons camped at Salyersville, Kentucky in September 1862 with the rest of Marshall's army. Kirby Smith had defeated the Union Army under Bull Nelson at Richmond and captured more than 4,000 of his men. He had quickly occupied Lexington and the capital of Frankfort. The legislature had fled to Louisville. In the meantime, the third prong of the Confederate invasion, the Army of Mississippi, with 32,000 men under Braxton Bragg, had entered Kentucky from Chattanooga and arrived at a heavily fortified Munfordville. Bragg demanded that the Union garrison guarding the railroad bridge over the Green River surrender. When it refused, he used siege tactics for 2 days to no avail. Bragg brought the garrison commander under a flag of truce to see his massive army, and the commander surrendered on the spot. The same day, Edward Garrett, writing from Salyersville, said, quote, "Home guards all left their homes and fled into Ohio. Glorious, valorous home guards, a happy deliverance for Kentucky. May they never disgrace her again," unquote. The New York Times reported, quote, "Kentucky's capital gone, the destruction of the bridges by the rebels on the railroad between Frankfort and Louisville shows that they are in complete control of the capital and the entire interior of the state. In Kentucky, the rebel rule will doubtless be extremely severe. The lines have been tightly drawn in the state. Nearly a year and the bitterest feuds exist between the Unionists and secession sympathizers," unquote. On September 17, the 5th Kentucky led Marshall's army from Salyersville to West Liberty, the site of the 5th's first engagement and where many of the recruits mustered in, including most of the Morgan County Barkers and Gevedons. George Washington Noble wrote, quote, "The army marched through West Liberty with a brass band and drum and fife in great pomp," unquote. It isn't known if the Barker matriarch, Elizabeth Mumbauer, still mourning the death of her husband William at Ivy Mountain, made the short trip from Crockett to see her 4 sons, Henry M., John C., George W., and William L. Barker's triumphant return to the area, or if Angeline Gevedon ventured away from Grassy Creek with her 3 children to see Henry and her 2 surviving brothers, or if it was just too dangerous. In a letter from General Williams back to Jack May, who had remained at Salyersville, he wrote, quote, "I returned to West Liberty this morning from Bath County. The news is all good. We captured guns enough to arm 2 companies and some 15 horses. I shot 1 man in a little skirmish with Jonathan Lewis's home guards," unquote. From here on, events began to compress rapidly and get confusing as the 5th Kentucky marched on orders and then to countermanded orders up and down the chain of command. George Noble, whose memoir written in 1912 on the 50th anniversary of his time in the 5th, has been astonishingly accurate so far, and there is no reason to doubt the veracity of his memory at this point. Noble reported that on about September 20th, 1862, quote, "The army then marched through Owingsville, Bath County. It marched through Mount Sterling, the home of General Williams, and camped there the next day. We were ordered back to Owingsville to head off General Morgan, a Yankee general, who was retreating from Cumberland Gap and had been cut off by Bragg's army, but he had got past us just in time to save himself and his army," unquote. General Williams confirmed most of this in his report back to Jack May, quote, "You never saw such a time as there was when I got to Owingsville. I was presented with a fine flag by the ladies. They are making one for you that costs $60. I could write a heap, but haven't time. Come in haste, for the way is open and plenty to eat," unquote. Meanwhile, first reports arrived of a large battle near Sharpsburg, Maryland, that would be remembered for the stream over which it was fought, called Antietam Creek. It would turn out to be the bloodiest single day in U.S. history, before or since, involving 132,000 men, about 85,000 from George McClellan's Union Army, and about half that number of Robert E. Lee's Confederates. The incomprehensible carnage, even by Shiloh standards, included 12,000 Union killed, wounded, or missing, compared to 10,300 Confederates. The battle was a victory for the Union, but Lee was able to withdraw his nearly trapped army back to Virginia. The victory at Antietam gave President Lincoln the confidence to issue the Emancipation Proclamation he had been working on for some time. It was published in the northern newspapers. While slaves were now officially free on paper, their actual freedom was another matter in many areas of the South. The Richmond, Virginia Dispatch called it, quote, legislation for removing Negroes, unquote, saying, quote, the war has assumed a character of a grand Negro hunting expedition. Of victories the Yankees have gained few, Negroes many, unquote. Although the Kentucky's legislature request for new recruits to protect northern Kentucky from the rebel invasion had been answered and were arriving to defend Louisville, they weren't enough. William T. Sherman, stationed there, sent an urgent plea to Don Carlos Buell, whose arrival on the second day of the Battle of Shiloh had saved Grant's army in April, to abandon his Tennessee campaign and help him defend the city. Buell obliged and arrived with 55,000 men as the Confederates were tightening the noose. On the 29th of September, Union General William Bull Nelson, who had defeated our ancestors at Middle Creek, but in turn routed at Richmond, Kentucky, and who had withdrawn to Louisville to help defend it, was shot and killed by Union General Jefferson C. Davis, no relation to the Confederate president, in a heated dispute in a Louisville hotel. Nelson's bull in a china shop personality finally offended the wrong person, but high-level Union officers were so scarce that Davis was never prosecuted and went on to build an extensive combat record by war's end. On the same day, the 5th Kentucky Infantry, along with many other regiments and battalions, was on the move again from Mount Sterling. Noble wrote, quote, the Army fell back to Lexington, home of John C. Breckinridge, General John Hunt Morgan, and General Preston. From there we went to Hickman Bridge, Mercer County, about the last of September 1862. The Army camped there 1 week and marched in and out, unquote. At the beginning of October 1862, events began to compress even more rapidly as two great armies were sliding towards inevitable confrontation, and the chess game of trying to anticipate the enemy's deployments had begun, not only creating confusion in following them 154 years later, but for our ancestors who lived them. Edward Guerin's October 4th diary entry reads, quote, we had orders to move by forced marches on to Frankfort via Georgetown. We started after night, but before passing through Paris, received another dispatch ordering us to Lexington. The night was surprisingly beautiful and the road equal to the Via Appia. The reason of our forced marching is unassigned in any order, but reports come of the advance of Buell from Louisville, unquote. Guerin's entry the next day reads, quote, the Army passed through the city about 11 o'clock. The city in an uproar, evacuation, everybody busy, soldiers clad in Yankee suits, captured and now thrown away. May I see no more such days. Rode on. This move of our army had given new impetus to volunteering. Bad wind blows nobody good, unquote. Bad winds indeed. Look for part 12 in this video series.